Afternoon involving a Catholic bishop from Nova Scotia. CBC News has learned that Raymond Lahey was arrested in Ottawa earlier this month and is now facing child pornography charges. The CBC's Alison Crawford has more.
Bishop Raymond Lahey from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, was arrested at the Ottawa International Airport. He was coming back from an international trip, and members of the Canada Border Services Agency did a random check of his laptop computer, and he was later charged under Section 163.1 of the Criminal Code, which covers the distribution and sale of child pornography. Now, he returned to his diocese over the weekend and resigned on Saturday, and he sent out a letter to parishioners where he said he was resigning and that he needed time for personal renewal. The Pope has accepted his resignation, and many people actually in the Maritimes probably know of Bishop Lahey because he was the person who oversaw a $15 million compensation package for people who were abused by Roman Catholic priests going back to 1950. He helped negotiate that deal, and on August 7th of this year, he actually issued an apology from the Roman Catholic Church and said that the diocese was trying to right past wrongs. At the time, many people hailed that deal, saying it was the first time the Roman Catholic Church had apologized and compensated victims without going to court.
That is Alison Crawford in Ottawa. Now, from Ottawa to where the arrest happened to Nova Scotia, where the now former bishop was based. People in Lahey's diocese were surprised, certainly, by his resignation last week. The news of his arrest has been jaw-dropping, and the CBC's Brian Jabroni is tracking the reaction in Halifax. Brian, you know, I think people in Nova Scotia certainly knew Raymond Lahey, but for people in the rest of the country who don't know a lot about him, what more can you tell us about him?
Well, he's been a long-term priest and bishop here in Atlantic Canada. He was many years ago, he was a priest in the Diocese of St. John's, Newfoundland. From there, he became the bishop of the Diocese of St. George's, Newfoundland. And for the last 6 years, he was the bishop of the Diocese of Antigonish. Now, for people who don't know Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, that encompasses all of the island of Cape Breton and the area around the town of Antigonish. Now, he was a very well-respected bishop. He was much loved. And when his letter of resignation was read out to parishioners on the weekend, there was real sadness and regret that he was leaving, but people respected the decision that he was leaving for personal reasons, which is what he said in his letter to parishioners. And many felt that, you know, given the amount of work he'd put into negotiating the settlement of that lawsuit that Alison just talked about, the lawsuit for that settled a class action suit with sexual abuse victims dating back decades with the church here in Nova Scotia, that he had been under a lot of stress and needed a break. Now, of course, we've learned that that is not the case, that he was in fact charged on Friday, the day before he submitted his resignation to the church here. Now, breaking news for you right now. We just got off the phone to the RCMP here. They tell us that they are still looking to arrest the Bishop Lahey, that they were given a arrest warrant by Ottawa police yesterday morning, and they are still working on executing that warrant. So our understanding now is that he is still at large and is not in police custody at the moment.
And do they have a sense, Brian, of where he might be, or are they looking for him? Is he not where they expect him to be?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, they didn't tell us. They just said that they got the warrant yesterday and they still haven't executed it. So whether they don't know where he is or whether they're making arrangements for him to turn himself in, really not sure. But I can tell you that the reaction among senior church people here has been, as you said, a bombshell. Shocking news. So, you know, Paul Abbas, who is the father who is now the spokesperson for the Diocese of Antigonish, reacted a few moments ago with shock, sadness, disappointment. They knew nothing about this, and both the Archbishop of Halifax, who's the most senior clergy member here in Nova Scotia, both of them said that when they got the letter of resignation on the weekend, they believed that it was for personal reasons, that they had no inkling that he had been allegedly caught with a laptop full of child pornography, and that he was facing charges, and that they only learned of the charges today. So again, just a shock that this has happened, especially given the amount of time that Bishop Lahey spent negotiating a settlement for all those victims of child sexual abuse by priests here in Nova Scotia, spanning back decades.
Thank you so much, Brian. That is Brian Jabroni in Halifax for us. And just to recap what Brian said, some breaking news there. Police are telling CBC News that the former bishop has not been arrested yet. They have a warrant, and they are looking to arrest him on these charges of possessing and distributing child pornography. We are going to continue to track this story, track all of the voices and elements of it, and bring them to you live as they develop. In the meantime, we want to turn to one of our other top stories.